Hey guys, welcome to Not Just Any Book Club. Sorry we couldn't get that into gonzo journalism for this one, but because we're going to be reviewing this movie Stone Cold Sober. We are talking about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Terry Gilliam. My name is Pierce, if you're listening for the first time.
My name is Justin, if you're listening for the second time.
This is a unique one. Just real quick, this is sort of our series
Criterion
of where we're kind of diving into the Criterion Collection, picking out movies that seem interesting to us. It's a very prestigious collection. We both like film, so we're looking to explore it a little bit more. And we went with more of a modern feeling one this time, I would say. Compared to some of the stuff in the collection.
Some may even say a bit divisive.
Yeah. And so, before we get into it, I guess just general feelings I feel like we should say at the outset, considering I feel like normally I would save these a little bit, but I feel before we even get into plot, I think we should just be pretty straightforward. I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. It was enjoyable for what it was.
And then there's me, the guy who, is pretty positive about film, doesn't really like to give anything below like a 5 out of 10. This is the first time in so long that I have given a 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
Ever come across a film that, is so divisive. Usually when it comes to films like this, if it's divisive, I usually sit in the middle because I don't care that much. The Last of Us Part 2, give or take. The Last Jedi, don't care. This film, though, split down the middle, and for once in my life, I'm at the extreme end. A 1 out of 10. I hate this.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into why, and we'll try to parse through why you hate it so much. But so real quick, I'll just talk about the plot a little bit. What plot there is? It's pretty, I would say, almost plotless movie. Sort of plodding along in Las Vegas are our two main characters, and we get some insight into who they are and all that. But the main character of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a journalist, Raoul Duke, who is based on the author of the book, whose name I don't have written down here.
Hunter S. Thompson?
Hunter S. Thompson, thank you.
Big fan.
I was looking and I was like, it is not here. He is headed to Las Vegas with his attorney. And they are flying down in a red convertible to Las Vegas to cover a motorcycle conference or race.
Hells Angels.
Yeah. And they're sort of, the beginning is them just talking about, the main character sort of monologuing, narrating how many drugs they have and all the stuff they've used and are going to use, and the stuff they have that they don't want to use because the side effects are bad. But they pick up a young hitchhiker. They get sort of paranoid about him, and they drop him off. They check into the hotel, clearly highly intoxicated, and there's a scene, a couple of weird scenes in there, including some hallucinations with reptiles. The binge at the hotel escalates. Okay, they trash the room, they miss appointments, and they get some attention from the hotel staff. There is a second assignment. They're supposed to cover a conference on narcotics and dangerous drugs, and ironically, they go in there heavily under the influence. There is, as things start to get crazier and crazier, and the drug binge goes further and further. Eventually, there are these increasingly surreal moments and scenes where there's all kinds of hallucinations going on, and it all sort of arrives at the end uh, with Raoul sort of reflecting or writing about their experience here, and it's because that's what the author essentially did, wrote about his experience trying to capture the essence of the American dream in different places like Las Vegas. But yeah, uh, I think visually it's really interesting. I think what I sent to Justin when I watched it was that you sort of just have to give yourself into the ridiculousness of it. There's not really, I think there are things that the film is trying to say, but plot wise, there's not a lot to grasp onto. You just kind of have to go with the flow, much like they're doing because they're too high to do anything else. Um, so yeah, and there are a few things I didn't like about it, and I'm sure maybe I won't get to talk about those because I'll be too busy defending it
Defending.
from Justin. But maybe I'll just say it at the outset. Uh, I thought that Johnny Depp as Raoul was a little bit hard to understand at times.
He had a cigar in his mouth the entire
Yeah,
time.
right. And I get it. I get it. It's part of the character that he's playing, but it didn't make him easy to understand. Um,
Did you watch
honestly,
it with
that
subs?
I did not because I may have found an illicit website and I couldn't get the subtitles to line up, and that bothered me more than just trying to understand what he was saying. So I just didn't have subtitles.
Well, I had subtitles while watching it, so I understood every single word, which much to my chagrin, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Man, made the
Um,
movie worse.
but yeah, I think that was probably actually my least favorite part was that I was struggling to understand Johnny Depp, and I can't imagine it would have been better even in a theater because like if you're best possible circumstance you're in a movie theater watching this film,
In IMAX.
um, just because I think that it's not about the sound mixing or the volume or anything. It's about the fact that he has a cigarette in his mouth and he's sort of mumbling every line because he's got a cigarette in his mouth and he's acting as if he's high. He could very well have also been actually high. I wouldn't put it past early to mid career Johnny Depp for sure. Um, but yeah, very very difficult to understand. That was probably the main detractor of my enjoyment.
Was he even speaking like that in voiceovers? If I remember correctly, did he have trouble when he was like monologuing in his head?
No, I didn't have nearly as
Okay.
much trouble. Um, it's mostly the times where he was like clearly holding the cigarette
Yeah, yeah,
holder in his mouth and then speaking out of the side of it,
yeah,
plus whatever he was doing a little bit of a voice when as he's playing this character.
yeah.
So all of that combined just made it sort of difficult to understand. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, as we could. So when I was first watching this movie, I'm usually never a guy to be tempted to turn off a film very early on. Um, I'm usually giving a film the chance, but immediately within the first 5 minutes, I messaged Pierce. I'm like, I think I hate this, and I looked at the time. Oh my god, we're only 5 minutes into the movie, and I'm still giving it a chance. Normally, under normal circumstances, I would turn it off, switch to something else. But then, because my experience with Anora, I said, Pierce, this movie is not very impressive. Whatever. And then eventually slowly crept up to be a 10 out of 10. Woo!
mm.
But Anora was it's not this movie. So eventually I started to hate it even more and more, and I slowly felt like I was just watching the cinematic equivalent of brain rot. Um, and I just hated everything about this film. The fact that there was no straight man to anything, it was just crazy, weird for the sake of being weird. The fact that everybody was just acting kind of strange, and there's barely any moment of reprieve. So
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is because this movie is so focused on perspective, like the perspective of its protagonist, that uh, sort of the problem that we're seeing is what is, Raoul's view of the people around him, right? Like, is he going to notice the people really looking at him strangely? Is he going
Mm-hmm.
to notice the, sort of the straight figure? We both, because we knew what your opinion was going to be,
Yeah.
and we wanted to talk about it more broadly. We both have like watched interviews and reviews of this movie, sort of in preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that um,
Roger Ebert.
yeah, Roger Ebert said was he talked about in one of the interviews I saw, the moment in it was a diner, right? It's been
Yes.
since I watched the movie. In the diner where they're acting aggressively towards the waitress and the voiceover. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like there's sort of going to be a moment where the film shows these people's destructive behavior for what it is like destructive to not only them but also the world around them,
Mm-hmm.
and then that moment sort of fades, and we don't, that's the only second where it seems like the movie is trying to do that.
Playing it straight. Yeah.
Yeah, playing it straight and showing us like the actual effect that these people are having on the world and the people around them. But because we are so in, like, we are seeing the hallucinations that these characters are seeing, because we're so in that perspective, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt and say that's what they're kind of going for. That, while you are, people talk about drug addicts and say, they need to want to help themselves, right? And you'll see why this is
Mm-hmm.
relevant in a second.
Yeah.
If these people don't think that they're doing any damage to the world around them, right, then they're not going to see it. They're not going to see the weird looks they get from people. They're not going to see sort of how they're affecting others. And that moment in the diner is maybe like a moment of breakthrough for just a second. Um, but I also get why that would be kind of tiring. Like I said, I think you just have to
Yeah.
give yourself into the ridiculousness of the movie to
Yeah.
enjoy it.
I mean, okay. So that moment where it does get into the sobering reality of like showing that their behavior is not okay. It was that scene in the diner, and then the scene right after it with the maid where he
Mm-hmm.
kind of assaults her, and you almost think it's gonna be sexual assault, but thankfully it's not. And he gives her money to be quiet and sticks money in her bra. I think that was like supposed to be kind of like the ending, I guess, kind of like it's not endorsing the behavior. It was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be recounting it. I really wish there were more of those scenes because I could kind of see through the facade at the beginning, especially where like, wow, these guys are kind of jerks and douchebags, and they're just they're just
Yeah.
hurting everybody while doing it.
Well, so, and then I think also we would be remiss to not mention gonzo journalism a little bit more. The idea of like sort of the perspective of a journalist being actually in the moment, and instead of giving sort of an objective account, and all of the things that come with that. Uh, all of the things that come with that. Um, and sort of in this specifically, right, in Fear and Loathing, the parts that I liked the most, that I actually had some appreciation for, were the moments where we're kind of getting to see this critique, because these people are sort of living in the moment and existing
Mhm.
here, and part of that's the American dream, and Las Vegas is sort of a perfect backdrop for that, because you can bet it all on success and win. And Las Vegas sort of welcomes these two jerks who take advantage of people and are
Mhm.
rude and are high on drugs all the time, and they, you know, um, as much as they might be getting attention from the people around them, nobody really does too much about it, right?
That
Um,
is kind of true, I guess, but I don't know. It doesn't make for a fun watch, is what you're describing. I get the point. It does not make for a fun watch.
Yeah.
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 Especially when it's supposed to be a comedy in quotation marks. I again, I one thing I will say is that I did appreciate the practical effects and how much it was committed to the bit. I like the fact that it goes all the way, like with that weird dinosaur orgy thing that was happening. It's never brought up again.
Yeah.
Even in the most small scenes, like there was that one scene where they're in the hotel and the Johnny Depp's character is watching a Vietnam documentary, and some guy comes in and he standing right next to the TV, and just briefly, very briefly, he dons just a war military uniform, and then it cuts back to just normal. Didn't need to happen. That was cool, but it's kind of like the Cat in the Hat movie or the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It's just because you're committing to the bit with the practical effects and it's looking really good. Like Jim Carrey with the I think did Terry Gilliam also direct it? It feels like it. Where Jim Carrey was so dedicated to putting on practical effects that he had to go through CIA torture training or something like that because it would take so long to put on. It didn't make a good movie. Just like here.
The Grinch. You're talking about the Grinch.
The Grinch, yeah.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I probably couldn't really imagine this movie made by many other people. Terry Gilliam does have a lot of
A style.
Yeah, he's very stylistically. I was surprised to see how many Gilliam movies are in the collection. Actually, it's interesting. But because I think part of that is because he has such a unique and vibrant style that sort of fits perfectly into this movie. And I actually thought that there was a pretty strong comparison to Brazil for me. And I don't know. My thought with that is maybe it's because of sort of the deteriorating mental state, right, of the characters, that over time we're sort of seeing this heavy drug binge that leads to more hallucinating. And of course, there's goofy stuff throughout Brazil, but towards the end of it, there's some interpretations that our main character in that movie is sort of going a little bit crazy over time. And so that kind of fits there with me both thematically and stylistically.
A lot of Dutch angles with Terry Gilliam, if you want to describe his style just a bit. Practical sets that are kind of just disproportionate to how they look in real life, because I know that the one, it's either the size is very strange, the colors are very off. It's usually kind of washed out. In practical effects, again, he's very dedicated to it. I don't think he's ever used CGI. I feel like he would be very against it. No, he did use CGI in this movie, but it's supposed to look really weird. Do you know that there are other names that were originally attached to make this movie since 1976?
I did. That I don't know exactly what names there were, but I know a lot of people wanted to make this movie and were interested in it and got attached to it and left because it's a hard movie to make. There's a lot going on.
So in 1976, we had Larry McMurtry, famous author of The Last Picture Show and Lonesome Dove. He occasionally dabbled in filmmaking or screenwriting, I guess. For directors, we had Martin Scorsese. I almost messed up his name there for some reason. I hope the film gods don't strike me down there. And Oliver Stone, who it would have been a completely different movie. Mostly because they would never go this far with this realism. And you know what? I'm very surprised that this movie was made, because I can't imagine a studio exec going like, all right, Terry Gilliam, do your thing. And just
yeah, but Terry Gilliam was kind of a proven name at this point, at least to some extent, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I gotta say, I would be kind of interested in seeing an Oliver Stone cut of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, because I feel like he would lean hard into the gonzo journalism side of it, whereas Terry Gilliam sort of leaned very hard into the drugs and hallucinations. I think it would have to be present in any other director's version of this movie, but I think Oliver Stone's would be very interestingly different.
Yeah. You're telling me that this is basically an auteur film. And I think even the casting Johnny Depp was also kind of an interesting choice. I have no qualms with the acting. It's really, I guess, more of the directing of the film. It's
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because the only as when I was a kid, the only thing that I really ever saw Johnny Depp in was Pirates of the Caribbean, and I don't, obviously this is not the same performance, but I think it's funny that it's like sort of this like wacky kind of like Disney saw this movie and they were like, that's our guy, this wacky fellow. Um,
it's probably like Heath Ledger in the Joker. Oh no, in the Dark Knight, where it's
yeah.
like, wow, this guy that's just a leading actor going for this scary villain role or anything that's like this. Kind of like Brad Pitt being a character actor, even though he's described as having a leading man's face.
Mhm.
So it happens. I don't think Johnny Depp has ever done anything like this again. I'm trying to think.
Not really. I mean, he's done some, I mean, Edward
Rango, I don't know.
Scissorhands isn't exactly like a, it's a,
Probably anything with Tim Burton, I guess.
yeah, it's like
Kind of.
it's kind of weird, but it's not this weird, I don't think.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
I think that what I heard that some people kind of criticized, especially looking back, criticized Johnny Depp's casting specifically because of his history with drugs and trashing hotel rooms
Hmm.
and sort of the controversial side of Johnny Depp. But I think it kind of fits because of the purpose of both the book and the movie is to sort of show that uh, this counterculture, right? They get called hippies and stuff in the movie. This counterculture has sort of the actual political side of it, the serious side of it, the journalistic side of it in this
Hmm.
case has sort of faded away and given way to just hedonism, basically,
Hmm.
right? Like drug fueled pursuit of sort of phasing everything out in the background, to just in pursuit of pleasure, basically.
Hmm.
Um, and I think maybe that might actually Johnny Depp might actually be a good casting for that thematically, if nothing else. Um, I don't know if he's changed over the years, but it definitely seems like for a while there, that's basically all he was interested in was having a good time.
Okay. Well, I I've kind of exhausted my notes about really everything. Just my main qualms about this. I mean, do you have anything about Benicio del Toro? About
I
anything
thought he
like?
was good. I thought he was good. I don't really have too much to say about. I was pretty focused on Johnny Depp the whole time
You're
when I
trying to
was like
understand what he's
watching
saying.
that as well as just his performance in general. But
Yeah.
I thought he was a good secondary character, and like
Mhm.
you said, there's no straight man. I thought it was interesting because they sort of bounce back and forth who is going to be the most ridiculous person,
Yeah.
which is sort of there's no straight man, but one of them is slightly straighter than the other, and you have no idea who it could be.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was interesting with that. Um, I also, just to mention sort of that the way that the serious parts of countercultures kind of fade. I think that it's kind of interesting with a lot of different aspects of culture. There's not specifically just the countercultural movements, but like over time, you look at different art movements, like even I would say cinema over time, over the years, different aspects of our culture. They start out, and it starts out with a bunch of people who are trying to say something, trying to make some kind of change, either in their art space or even maybe with messages about the broader world. And over time, they gain in popularity and they become sort of commercialized, and a lot of them lose that bite. Um, and so, I mean, I think maybe you could drag this out into a critique of American or Western culture more generally, that we sort of commercialize everything and it loses that more serious aspect of it. It gets sort of sanded down to be
Mm-hmm.
palatable.
To the masses.
Right. But just the like fun hedonistic parts are left to be enjoyed by the
Mm-hmm.
masses. But obviously the focus here is on sort of that 60s countercultural movement. I think that you could honestly expand this critique out to any a lot of different cultural movements. I don't think it's just the countercultural movement, the hippie movement that did this. I think it's a lot of different things where we start off and we have good messages and we're trying to make serious change, and then these movements sort of fade and change from what they were. Yeah, this.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I and I don't think that's actually the text of the movie. I think the text is just there's not a ton of text,
Yeah.
but the text that is there is entirely focused on that countercultural movement because that's what Hunter S. Thompson was focused on.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to sort of, as an ending note, say that I think you could you could see similar patterns elsewhere.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I've got no further comments on this. I'm holding back my rage about this film mostly.
He really hates
Yeah.
this movie. I don't think it really
Yeah.
came across. He
Yeah.
can we
You know
tell
what other
them what you
you know
rated
what
it the
other
same as?
Yes, I was just getting to that. All right. Some famous films that I have rated 1 out of 10. Red One, The Karate Dog, Marmaduke, all the Transformers films, and Cool Dog and The Dogfather.
Yep.
So it's the
So
equivalent of that.
yeah, that's it. I keep telling him it doesn't feel like a very. I know this isn't a very rational movie, but it doesn't feel like a very rational take on an irrational movie.
it it's it's
Um,
like this. I'm like, if I knew I was gonna hate it within the first 5 minutes, I probably wouldn't have given it a chance. I probably would have walked out of the theater, asked for a refund, and this movie would have just existed into the void of my memory and not have given a rating. I usually don't. I don't stop movies like this so early on, but like the fact that it felt so long and it was only around 2 hours, and the
mhm.
fact that I hated it very intensely from the first 5 minutes, and I finished and shrugged it through, was the fact that I gave it a 1. Originally, it was a 2 out of 10 because I was like, the practical effects are fine, but I
Yeah.
gave it that 1. I was like, I can't stand this. Just not my kind of movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like everything around um like I said, I kind of have my problems with it, but everything around those problems was done pretty well, and like you said, it committed to the bits, and so I thought that it was I thought it was done well. I think
Thank
to end us off, we've kind of been doing does it deserve a spot in the collection in our opinion. Um, I say yes. It's not my favorite movie ever, but Terry Gilliam, pretty unique style. Uh, it's kind of a cult classic. Like some people really love this thing. Some people really hate it. So I kind of give some credence to those sorts of films that might not get this quality of a release. Um, for those people who love it. Like obviously Criterion does a really great job with their releases and their special features and
Mhm.
things. So for those reasons, I even though it's not my favorite, I actually do think it deserves a spot.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this film has its audience. I am not one of them. I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade. Like, if someone walked out with this film in the Criterion closet, I'm not going to like, hold, and just throw it out at them. I'm not going to be that
Hold
guy.
on, that's bad. Actually,
That's bad. Actually,
you
no.
don't know. You're not watching it correctly. It's actually very bad.
It's trash. What is this garbage? I'm not going to do that. I'm not. So, I'm like, fine, whatever. If I think it's devoid of any entertainment value or even artistic merit, to be honest, besides just the practice and practical effects, whatever. That's my opinion. I would never make a movie like this or watch a movie like this, but you do you, man. Put it in the Criterion closet. I'm not going to be the person that denies its entry in there.
Well, I think on that note, if you liked or enjoyed, please give us a like, rating, subscribe, follow. We truly do appreciate it. You can also find us on Twitter and TikTok and Blue Sky, posting
It's
sometimes,
funnier every time.
occasionally. It gets funnier every time.
It gets even funnier.
At Not Just Any Pod.
Our YouTube content that's supposed to exist.
Yeah.
At Not Just Any Pod, or Not Just Any Book Club.
I actually might make it a David Lynch ranking. We'll see. Just because I don't think we're gonna be able to talk, even though he has a lot of stuff in the collection. Obviously, we probably won't be able to talk about all of it, unless we do like a bunch of dedicated David Lynch episodes. So I might just do kind of an overview ranking video, so I can get all that out there and talk about it as much as I want. We'll see. It'll be really funny when this never. It'll be really funny when that never happens and I never do that. But yeah, in for news of things that are actually happening for sure. Next week you will be able to join us for our discussion on Berlin Alexanderplatz by Alfred Dublin. I think that's how you say it. I have a German certificate. I'm pretty sure I said it wrong, but that's all right.
Oh,
you can find our discussion there. And yeah, with that, I think we're about done.
Goodbye, Prometheus.